Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Good morning to you all. We've got kind of like a little special show here today, which doesn't fit neatly into any of our other regularly scheduled programming. This is something that's been asked for from a lot of you over the course of the last year or two, especially since we started doing so many more videos here on the channel. And the question I regularly get is, Pete, who are your top 20 or 30 or 50 bands, right? The ones all time that mean the most to you. So initially I was like, God, that would be really hard to put together, right? And it was. I won't lie to you. Very, very difficult. So what I did was I decided first I was going to do 20. And then I'm like, oh, God, there's no way I can. 20 just doesn't work for me, right? Because it's never enough. And then I wanted to do 25, and that didn't quite work. So then I settled on a top 30, all right? And then I got my top 29 on the list, and I was very happy with that list. And then all of a sudden, another 8 or 10 bands popped up, and I'm like, oh, Jesus, this is never ending, right? So here's what I did. So I did a top 29, and then for number 30, I've got probably a dozen that are all just kind of lumped into number 30. And if I've forgotten bands, yeah, so be it, right? It is what it is. But at least you get, I love a ton of bands. So if you don't hear, I guess what I'm trying to say is I feel bad that there's going to be some bands that are not going to make the cut here. That doesn't mean I love them any less, right? But these are the ones I think that mean the most to me, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to count down. I'm going to do my mishmash at number 30 first, and then I'll get to 29 through number 1. And again, don't take too seriously where they fall in the order. Other than the top 10, all the rest can kind of, they're almost all equal, right? I just wanted to, don't pay too much attention about the order. Just the fact that they're in my top 30 is what really means something, right? Because these are the real special bands to me. And again, you're going to notice most of these bands are ones that I've grew up listening to and still listen to. There are some newer bands, or more recent bands in the last 20, 30 years on here. Not a lot of them, but there are some. And those are very special to me. But, I think 10 years from now, some of those bands that I've really been listening to a lot over the last 15, 20 years or so might start to creep into this. I just don't have as much history with yet, right? So it's always difficult to do something like this. All right, so let's kickstart my number 30, which is, a whole bunch of them. So we got, coming in at number 30 is Journey, the Doobie Brothers, the Rolling Stones, Budgie, Heart, Gillan, Symphony X, Alice Cooper, Gary Moore, Santana, Megadeth, Metallica, specifically early Metallica, Slayer, Return to Forever, Mahavishnu Orchestra, Boston, and the Electric Light Orchestra. I don't know how many that was, 10, a dozen, whatever. It doesn't really matter. Those are all the last-minute ones that I'm like, oh, my God, I can't believe I didn't put on this list, right? So I had to put them on there somewhere. I really toyed with not putting Metallica on this list, but there's just no denying the impact on my life. Kill 'Em All, Ride the Lightning, Master of Puppets, and then Justice for All was on my life. Huge. So even though I don't really listen to them much anymore, and I really didn't care for much of their stuff in the 90s and early 2000s, I don't dislike their last 2 studio releases. But those 4 first albums, I have to include them just for that, right? All right, so now that we got that out of the way, let's get to number 29. One of my favorite prog bands, one of the first prog bands ever. I'm going to see them in September. King Crimson. Okay, coming in at number 28 from Texas, one of the best power trios of all time, ZZ Top. God, and I mentioned power trio, and I didn't include Jimi Hendrix on this list. See, this is why this sucks. This is so hard. Anyway, ZZ Top at 28. Throw Hendrix in with the number 30 crew. It's got to be on here somewhere. And I'm probably going to remember other bands as I go through this. Coming in at number 27, and I wanted to put them higher, but I just kind of forgot about them, and they were so important to me growing up that they had to be on this list. Maybe they could be higher, but like I said, it doesn't really matter. Kiss, okay? Number 26, mostly for Lonesome Crow through Blackout, the Scorpions, specifically the Uli John Roth era, which for me, I absolutely love and will put up against a lot of the other bands on this list for that period alone. I absolutely adore those early Scorpions albums. Still do. Okay, number 25, Lynyrd Skynyrd. Love Skynyrd, man. I love Southern rock. Number 24, The Who. Okay, 10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, The Who probably would have been a little higher on my list. I think I've just grown to love a lot of bands more over the years, okay, but I still love The Who. 23, the Allman Brothers Band. Love them. Love them. Miss them. 22, Grand Funk Railroad. I'm representing today with my shirt. I love the Funksters. A band I really wasn't that into when I was a kid, believe it or not. I just thought that I didn't like them. I liked a couple of radio tunes, but I really started getting into Grand Funk Railroad in the 90s. And beyond. I just love him now. Love him. Number 21, I had to get him on here somewhere because he's just so hugely important to everything about me. Robin Trower. Love Trower. As a guitar player, love the songs, love the band. Great stuff. Number 20 could be a little higher, but I'm happy they're on here. Thin Lizzy. Love Thin Lizzy. Love so many of those albums. They're just so great. Number 19, Opeth. All right. I felt bad about not including more extreme metal stuff on here. But again, I haven't had as long with extreme metal as I have with a lot of these other bands. There's a couple, I thought about putting Immortal on here and, Enslaved, maybe Amorphous. But they sit, they're in my top 50 easily. But in this upper echelon, not quite there yet. Opeth, though, I love their death metal stuff, their progressive stuff. I love their newer hard rock and prog stuff. I just love them to death. Opeth, great band. Coming in at number 18, again, could be a little higher, but Blue Oyster Cult. Love Blue Oyster Cult. Love so many of their albums. Just such a great band. Number 17, Kansas. A band that if you would have asked me 20 years ago, would they have been on this list? They might have just missed it. But man, and them and the next band, number 16, Styx. BOC, Kansas, and Styx, for me, I've grown to love all three so much more over the last 20 years. It's funny how you have a band that you always really liked when you were younger, but you liked other stuff more. And then as you get older, you start to realize just how great those bands were, even greater than you thought originally, okay? Those three bands are it for me, right? Just love them. I listen to so much BOC, Kansas, and Styx these last bunch of years, more than ever, okay? Just, your taste change a little bit, you mature a little bit. It's the way it goes. Number 15, I got to have Iron Maiden on this list, right? Another band, so important to me. Just love them. Love all their albums, with the exception of those two Blaze albums. I love all the other stuff. Love the early stuff at Diano. Love the 80s stuff. Love the recent stuff. Just love them. How about Yes, coming in at number 14? Yes, I got to have Yes. All right. Not crazy about most of their albums released since Union. Some good tracks here and there, but man, no denying those 70s albums. And there's a lot of good stuff on the 80s releases too. Drama's a great freaking album. I like a lot of 90125. Big January's got a couple good tunes, right? Talk has got some good stuff, but mostly those classic Yes albums. Can't beat them. All right, number 13. Got to have Rush on this list. A hugely important band to me. All right. Man, Moving Pictures is one of my favorite albums of all time. Such an important album to me when it first came out. Permanent Waves, Hemispheres, Farewell to Kings, the first album. Signals and Fly By Night and Caress of Steel and 2112. All right, Grace Under Pressure. Even the more recent Rush stuff. Love them. Love them. Coming in number 12, a band that's probably the most unique one on this whole list. And a surprising one sitting where it sits. But, man, I love them. They're so eclectic. They're so different. Fucking Gentle Giant, man. Love Gentle Giant. They're a band that I almost shouldn't love because they're just so weird and different. But that's what I love about them. Their music to me is so engaging. It's so complex. It's so different. It's like nothing I ever listened to before when I first got into them. And I still love them to death to this day. I can pop on a Gentle Giant album any time and be like, man, it's just so great, right? Number 11, Judas Priest. Another huge part of my younger years. And I still just can't get enough of them to this day. Man, those early Priest albums and those 80s albums are just great. And man, I've loved the last couple albums they've done. Love them. I mean, there's not a lot of legacy bands like that are putting out such strong albums so late in their career as Priest nowadays. Gotta love them. And they're going to do another one. Can't wait. Number 10, Jethro Tull. I always liked the music of Jethro Tull, but I really didn't start getting into Tull until probably like the late 80s. All right, by like 90, 91, 92, I was a huge fan. So I've had like the last, 30 years of really listening to Tull. And I love all aspects of their career. Obviously, the 70s albums are the best, but man, they had a lot of great albums in the 80s. So Yeah, just another unique band. Really great band. Hard rocky, folky, proggy, man. Just love them. Little blues. Number 9, Genesis. The Peter Gabriel era albums to me are really special. Really special. Probably my favorite progressive rock band. Though, and in fact, I'll go to say that from Trespass to Duke, not a lot beating those. Even those first couple albums with Collins on vocals are really, really good. I just love Genesis. Number 8, Dream Theater. I've been a huge fan of Dream Theater since I first heard When Dream and Day Unite. And I remember at the time I heard that album from some old friends of mine that I went to college with who got that, and I was like, man, what is that? I really liked it, right? I didn't buy it though at the time, but I really liked it. And then, before you know it, Images and Words came out, and again, I remember hearing that on the radio, pull me under, and it just completely sucked me in. I was like, what is that? Who is that? It's like, well, it's a new album from Dream Theater. I'm like, Dream Theater? That's that band that my Long Island buddy was playing for me, but that doesn't sound like what I heard before. And since that Images and Words album came out, I've seen them almost on every single tour. I've seen them more than any live band. I've loved their albums. For me, they're like the combination of two things I love so much, which is heavy metal and progressive rock. Okay? It's like a perfect meeting of the minds. I love their musicianship. I love the melodic nature of their songs. Just a great, great, great band. Coming in at number 7, Led Zeppelin. Yeah, this Zeppelin has kind of always been there for me. And while I like some of their contemporaries better, I always have, Zeppelin has always been a constant in my life. And I love all those albums, and they've just always been really, really important to me. They've never been a top band for me, but they're always kind of simmering underneath. Just so much like kind of mystical quality to their music and their history and all that kind of stuff. Love them. Coming in at number 6, UFO. Yep. Love UFO. I've loved UFO since I first got Lights Out, and it's been Lights Out ever since. I especially love the Schenker years, obviously, but I do like those 80s albums, and I like the more recent albums too. I've been following them for a long, 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 long time, 40 years. Love them. Coming in at number 5, Rainbow. I'm a Blackmore guy, right? And while there's not a lot of Rainbow albums, and they differ in quality, Rainbow Rising, Long Live Rock and Roll, Down to Earth. The first album, fantastic. I really like Difficult to Cure. I really like Straight Between the Eyes. Bent Out of Shape is solid, right? Stranger in Us All, good album, right? It's classic stuff right there. Stuff with Dio is legendary, right? Coming in at number 4, my guys in Uriah Heep. I love Uriah Heep, man. And I've always loved Uriah Heep since I was at 13 years old, something like that. So I've been 40 years going on with Uriah Heep. Just love them to death. And a band that, again, I just keep loving more and more and more as I've gotten older. I'm a sucker for like heavy guitars and heavy Hammond organ. I totally am. I listen to so many bands that have that Heap Purple formula. It's hard for me to resist. And I just loved it. They've got so many great albums. A lot of different elements to a lot of their albums. Just great anthems. They're proggy, they're heavy, they're psychedelic, there's folk going on there. A little bit of everything. Love it. All right, the final 3, guys. Coming in at number 3. I mean, these top 3. I've been talking about these top 3 for years here on the channel. Even more on the website. Whitesnake. I'm a huge David Coverdale mark. Regardless of whether you think he can still sing or not sing today, it doesn't matter. The guy has meant so much to me for so many years. And he's one of my favorite vocalists of all time. And there's just something about David Coverdale. David Coverdale is a freaking rock star, right? And he's just a cool guy. He has fronted some great, 2 fantastic bands, 3 if you count Coverdale Page. But man, those 3 albums he did with Purple, Burn, Stormbringer, and Come Taste the Band, I absolutely love. I love all the Whitesnake albums, right? They're still killing. That new Whitesnake album is so good. The 87 album, Slide It In, Come and Get It, man. I mean, I love Whitesnake. Again, they're bluesy, they're metallic, they're just, and those vocals, man, and he's had some great guitar players with him over the years. I've seen Whitesnake numerous times live, always totally get into it, and I'm going to continue to do so till they no longer do it, but I'll still be listening. Number 2, of course, the mighty Black Sabbath. Probably throughout the 80s was my number 1 band, and probably into the 90s as well. They're my number 2. They're not out of the number 1 slot by much, but I've just, as I've grown older, the slightly more sophisticated nature of Deep Purple's music, and especially since I became a real prog fan, has kind of won me over just a little bit more. But man, I love Sabbath. Just love them to death. Still to this day, can listen to any Sabbath album, no matter how many times I've heard it, and be like, yeah, I just do. Sabbath is the headbanger in me, will always be. And Sabbath got me into really heavy music. That's just the way it is, and I love them. And coming in at number 1, like I just mentioned, Deep Purple, right? Deep Purple and Sabbath for me are like neck and neck at the top. They've been at the top. I've been Purple and Sabbath fanatic for as long as I can remember, and I still love both bands the best out of all these other bands. It's just the way it is. They're kind of closely connected in a way, but not. They're just as influential to the scene, okay, but in different ways. And for me, Deep Purple is all about, the guitars of Blackmore, and in recent years, the guitars of Steve Morse, man, because I think he's done a great job in the band. I love a lot of the album. I love all the albums that they've released with Steve Morse, and he's been in the band now longer than just about anybody, right, other than, Ian Pace or whatever. Ian Pace and Gillan. I think if you look at he's been in the band longer than Blackmore ever was. Ian Pace, obviously, a founder. And I don't know if you add in, I guess Gillan and Glover have been in longer, but, Morse is right up there now, right? So... And, Deep Purple's had 2 amazing singers, 2 of my favorite singers of all time, Ian Gillan, David Coverdale. You throw Glenn Hughes in there as well, okay? Not to take anything away from Rod Evans and Joe Lynn Turner, but, man, those are the main guys. So many great albums. In Rock is one of my top 3 albums of all time. Made in Japan, one of my favorite live albums of all time. Fireball, Machine Head, Burn, Now What? I mean, it's all the Perfect Strangers, so on and so forth. So many great albums. So many great tunes. Just love it. So there you have it. All right. My top 30+ favorite bands of all time. I know there's some that I'm probably leaving out here, and it is what it is. But these are some of the ones that mean the most to me. I think this is pretty complete. You could throw a couple others in there. The James Gang just came to mind. There's. I like some stuff like Elton John or Billy Joel, whatever, that's not in here. So there's a lot that didn't make the cut, but doesn't mean I don't love them, right? But these are the kind of the cream of the crop for me anyway, for most of my life. So visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're here on YouTube often. So for all you guys and gals who have been asking for this, there you have it. These are the bands that really tickle my fancy the most. These are the ones that get me going, right? That have been keeping me going for all these years, and these are the ones I go back to time and time again, and I just love to death. So anyway, hope you enjoy this, and we'll see you real soon. Take care. Bye-bye.